Shiki is a good-for-nothing loser brought up on a planet by cringe robots. His everyday life takes a turn when he comes across a beautiful girl for the first time in his life and becomes her pet. Eventually, the two of them leave the planet in search of mysterious goddess with unlimited powers. Once upon a starry night, a kid named Shiki was hanging out with his grandpa, the Demon King, and his robot buddy, Michael, watching stars zoom by. The grandpa joked that a shooting star was actually a dragon, but Michael insisted it was just a comet, which made the grandpa chuckle. Just then, Grandpa got serious for a moment and told Shiki he should go on an adventure someday, meet lots of different people, and make friends. Shiki thought his grandpa meant his robot friend could be that kind of friend. But Michael said robots can't cry since they don't have hearts. The grandpa disagreed, saying everyone's got a heart. When Shiki got curious about space, the grandpa told him it's full of wild stuff, even bugs, and there's this entity called Mother who can make any wish come true. Michael wondered what Shiki's wish would be. And without missing a beat, Shiki said he wanted to make a ton of friends. After a bunch of years, there's this lady named Rebecca who's all about sharing her life online. She lands on this planet called Granville with her cat, Happy. This place is special because it's full of robots, and Shiki is the only person there. Rebecca is super popular because nobody's visited in a long time. She's planning to make some really neat videos there. On the other hand, Shiki is thrilled to finally see another person and gets a bit too excited, wanting to feel if Rebecca's real. She's not having it and tells him to back off, but Shiki doesn't give up. He's around every corner, trying to be her buddy. Curious, Rebecca talks to the robots, and they tell her Shiki's the lone human, and they're all his robot pals. Shiki's taking his granddad's advice super seriously about making friends, and is super keen on getting Rebecca to join his squad. However, Rebecca's not really buying into that idea. Meanwhile, everyone's chilling when suddenly this scout dashes in to spill the beans to this big, tough-looking guy named Lord Castellan about Rebecca showing up. Later on, Michael spills some more tea to Rebecca, telling her that this big boss, the Demon King, actually took Shiki under his wing. Shiki's been all about fixing bots and stuff, but when the Demon King himself broke down, Shiki couldn't make him work again. However, the Demon King was actually the one Shiki thought was his grandpa. The next day, Shiki rubs his eyes awake from a mega nap and sees that the big, bad robot dude who kinda looks like Thanos has gone and tied up Rebecca and her kitty. The other robots are suddenly all over Rebecca, ranting about how humans have always looked down on them. Shiki is still in disbelief, only to have Castellan drop the bomb that they've been fooling him the whole time. Turns out, all the fixing Shiki thought he was doing was actually the planet's fancy auto-fix system handling it. Shiki's whole robot repairing life has been one big fake out. With that, Shiki tries to save her from the robot's wrath, but then the bots turn on him, giving him a real whooping. Rebecca starts crying, and this gets Shiki fired up. He taps into his special ether gear power, which is like this rare, dark age magic thing. It's not something you see every day, that's for sure. Shiki goes full-on superhero mode and goes after Castellan, leaving Rebecca totally shocked to see a human rocking such crazy power. After giving Castellan a good wallop, Shiki uses his ether gear to create a gravity pull that sucks him, Rebecca, and Happy onto the ship they came in. It is revealed that Rebecca's ship can actually soar through space. That's how she got to the Granville planet in the first place. Rebecca spills the beans that she's originally from a place called the Blue Garden. As they're zooming away in the ship, they cruise by this huge dragon. Everyone back on Granville always thought it was just a comet hanging in the sky, but nope, it's an actual dragon. Meanwhile, back on the dusty old Granville planet, there's a bit of a twist. Castellan and the robot gang pulled their whole act just to push Shiki out into the big wide galaxy. Turns out, they were about to shut down for good and didn't want Shiki to be all alone when they turned into expensive paperweights. And then, there's Michael, sounding extremely depressed as he goes off. The main computer confirms it's lights out for all the robots on Granville. As they're traveling through the stars, Shiki decides he's going to be friends with as many people as he can. He's still tight with Michael and the robot crew, even if they're not around anymore. Rebecca introduces him to this cool site called BCube where she drops her videos. It's a hangout for folks called BCubers who love checking out fun stuff online. Rebecca's got this idea for Shiki to be her personal guard since she sometimes ends up in sketchy spots for her videos. Having Shiki there would mean she's got some muscle to back her up. Shiki's all in, he says yes on the spot. But hold up, before they get into all that, Rebecca says Shiki's got to get himself signed up as an adventurer over at Blue Garden. So they finally reach Blue Garden and head over to this place called Starlight, which is like the hangout spot for adventurers. Surprisingly, Shiki's totally taken aback cause there are loads of humans there. He's super pumped about making friends with all of them. However, something catches Shiki's eye. He looks up and sees this hologram of someone called Mother right smack in the middle of the building. He gets all excited and rushes towards it, begging Mother to grant his wish of being friends with everyone. Rebecca steps in and stops him, explaining that what he's seeing is just an image of Mother. No one's actually seen her for real. Apparently, Mother's like this super important cosmic being, the big boss of the whole universe. However, the only thing they know is that one adventurer accidentally stumbled upon her while exploring the Sakura cosmos, and that's all the info they've got about Mother. Shiki gazes up and feels like he's met Mother before. When the other adventurers catch wind of this, they can't help but crack up. To them, Shiki's claim sounds like a joke because how could he have possibly met the legendary Mother? But Shiki, he's unfazed by the laughter. He's still all about making friends with the adventurers, which just makes them laugh even harder. They think he's pretty clueless to be so friendly when they're mocking him. Feeling a bit red-faced, Rebecca quickly pulls Shiki out of there. She's curious and asks him if he's for real about meeting Mother. Shiki admits it's more of a gut feeling than anything else, and he's not totally sure about it. That's when it hits Shiki. Not everyone's looking to be friends. He's starting to see that there are good folks and not so good folks out there. While they're talking about not so nice folks, out of nowhere, a thief shows up and grabs Happy. This throws Rebecca into a flashback of when she first found Happy in a gloomy alley. She was just a kid herself, with no parents, but she took Happy in and cared for her. Shiki gets really angry and turns on his special power to run after the thief. He catches the guy and knocks him off his motorcycle. The bad guy then threatens to hurt Happy if anyone gets too close. That's when we find out it was Rebecca who named the cat Happy because finding her made Rebecca feel like she wasn't alone anymore. Just as things are heating up, Rebecca arrives where the thief and Happy are. Just then the situation gets even stickier as the thief's buddies show up, and they all know Rebecca from her online videos. Shiki's throwing punches at the bad guys while Rebecca's mind races back to a time when Happy was in a bad accident. It was so serious, but luckily, this smart professor fixed Happy up with robot parts. While Shiki's still fighting, Happy suddenly changes into a pair of guns. Rebecca grabs them and takes out the creeps like a pro. Shiki's confused. With skills like that, why Rebecca would ever need someone to protect her? Meanwhile, way out in space, there's this tough space pirate named Elsie Crimson. She gets the news about the Demon King's grandson leaving his home planet. Hearing that, she orders her crew to set course for Blue Garden. After the whole showdown with the bad guys and saving Happy, the crew heads back to the place where all the adventurers hang out. They bump into Claris Lair at the front desk, who's buddies with Rebecca. She asks whether Shiki joined the club without any ID and Claris is cool with it. While they're strolling through the main area, some of the adventurers start poking fun at Shiki again. Out of nowhere, this super famous B-Cube star named Labelia walks in, and the place just goes wild. But Labelia's got some attitude and starts dissing Rebecca right there, saying she's just a small-time B-Cuber who'll never reach her level. It turns out Labelia's a big deal because tons of people watch her videos, and she's raking in the cash. Shiki is fuming with anger towards Labelia, but Rebecca manages to calm him down. Later, they all head to a restaurant to grab a bite. They're served some mouth-watering chicken, and Shiki can't help but compliment how delicious it tastes as he indulges in the juicy meat. While they're enjoying their meal, Rebecca surprises Shiki by printing out his adventurer card right then and there. She explains that they use this cool ether tech, just like his powers. Shiki's current rank is E, the lowest rank, since he doesn't have a family name and goes by Granbell. To create exciting content that people will love, Shiki suggests visiting Mother, whom nobody has ever seen. Rebecca agrees, but they need a better ship for the journey. She mentions that they should seek out the professor who fixed Happy after their time in Blue Garden. Suddenly, Elsie arrives and heads towards the adventurers' building to find Shiki. One of the adventurers informs her that Shiki and Rebecca were discussing a visit to planet Norma. Elsie is taken aback because she believed Norma was a lifeless planet. As they're traveling through space, Shiki wants to take a crack at flying the spaceship. Rebecca's not too keen on the idea at first, but she gives in when Happy chimes in, saying it'd make for some pretty epic footage. The thought of a newbie at the controls does sound like it could be a hit. Rebecca's still a bit nervous about letting him land, but again, the thought of great content wins her over. Shiki gets a bit button happy, though, and they end up crash landing with a bang. Once they're out on solid ground, Shiki shows off his skills by making the ship super light with his ether gear, lifting it out of the dirt like it's nothing. Looking glasses up, Shiki spots tons of stick-like things tumbling down from the sky. Rebecca fills him in that the weather on Norma is wacky, with these poles actually being Earth ether crystals that rain down. They're part of a cycle, crystallizing and falling, then going back up again. Rebecca then breaks down what ether really is. It's like the juice that powers pretty much everything: people, the air, machines. Some folks even call it magic. Ether gear is like a special ability that tweaks the flow of this energy called ether inside a person's body, almost like tuning an engine. When Shiki finds out about this, he's quick to label himself as a kind of techie wizard. The whole setup of the planet surprises him, especially because it seems like a tough place for anyone to live. But then Rebecca lets him in on a secret. The surface is pretty harsh, so people have gone all out and built a whole kingdom under the ground. When they finally make it down there, Shicky's eyes pop out because it's just as bustling as any other planet, thriving with life and activity. Their adventure takes them to where Professor Weiss is supposed to live, but when they get there, the place is empty. They start snooping around, trying to find a clue or something. That's when this young dude suddenly comes in, waving a gun around and looking not too happy to see them. He asks for their identity and why they are in his place. Turns out, he's called Weiss too, but he's not the professor they're looking for, and he sure doesn't know Rebecca or Happy. Weiss is suspicious and asks if Shicky and his crew are on Sibir's team, but they're clueless about who Sibir is. Just then, Shicky spots someone chilling on the roof. With a quick move, he uses his gravity magic to yank the rooftop lurker down. Seeing this person, Weiss hops on his motorcycle and races away. The guy from the roof thinks Shicky and his buddies are pals with Weiss and warn them that his boss is going to be super mad and think they've double-crossed him. Later, Rebecca, Shicky, and the rest are trying to piece together the weirdness at Weiss's place. Rebecca has a light bulb moment and suggests that the Weiss they met was actually a younger version of the Professor Weiss they were looking for. And then, it clicks, they've somehow time-traveled 50 years into the past. The puzzle really comes together when they catch an old broadcast about the start of the Adventurers Guild, which happened half a century ago. Happy points out that their usual time is Cosmic Era X 492, but the date they're seeing now is 442. That's when it hits them. The young Weiss they bumped into is the same guy, just way before he became a professor. Surprisingly, Rebecca recalls that Professor Weiss mentioned how the planet is in big trouble. Out of the blue, this not-so-pretty guy shows up, controlling a massive robot. Turns out, that not-so-pretty guy is Sibir himself. Sibir demands that the team give back the money they supposedly stole from him. Shicky can't believe that Weiss used to be a thief in his younger days. Sibir attacks the gang with his robot, but Shicky surprises everyone by knocking out the robot with just one punch. It's like Shicky doesn't even know the full extent of his own powers yet. This gives them the perfect chance to escape. To cool off and figure out what to do next, the team decides to head to a bar. While they're chowing down, a man walks in and sits right next to them. Surprisingly, it turns out that the man is the professor himself. Both parties are totally shocked to see each other. Weiss starts to chill out when he gets the idea that the crew might be on Sibir's side. Rebecca whips out a photo of Weiss's future self, and he's totally bummed to see his hair isn't as awesome later on. He tells them to get back to their own time, but the gang has no clue how to do that. Shicky then nabs the case Weiss brought along. That case is the one Weiss lifted from Sibir, and everyone thinks it's stuffed with cash. But then, boom, Shicky's powers quit on him, and the case pops open. Surprisingly, it's not money inside. It's a tiny robot girl named Pino. Pino is super eager to follow orders from her boss. She spills the beans that she's like a walking, talking power zapper, which is why Shicky's powers went kaput. But no stress, her zapping thing only lasts a sec, and things will get back to normal fast. Weiss is totally taken aback that it was Pino in the case, not money. Pino says Sibir is her new boss after she was made to forget her original creator. She then zips off to find Sibir, and Weiss is right on her tail, thinking he can make some serious dough by selling her. Rebecca recalls how the older Professor Weiss always said stealing is a big no, and she's totally surprised to find out that the younger Weiss was actually a bit of a bad guy, swiping stuff. After Weiss takes off, the person serving drinks at the bar fills in Shicky and Rebecca about Weiss being tight with Sibir once, but then they had a big argument and Weiss swiped the case. The squad heads out of the bar, trying to figure out their next move. Shicky shows Rebecca this funky cube he found in the case, and whoa, it starts playing a video. They watch Sibir being mean to Pino, making her call him her boss. Shicky gets super mad seeing this and vows to sort Sibir out. Rebecca's worried about messing up time, but she can't stand the thought of leaving Pino with Sibir. Digging deeper, they find some plans in the case that blow their minds. Pino's actually from their time in the future. Pino finally gets to Sibir's secret place, but suddenly Weiss secretly follows the android there too. Meanwhile, Shicky and the gang are also heading towards the hideout. Just when Sibir is about to punish Pino by taking off their leg, Weiss shows up and kicks Sibir right in the face. And at the same time, Shicky and the crew burst into the building on a motorcycle. Shicky uses his cool gravity powers to pull the bad guys towards him and knocks them out with a punch each. Weiss grabs Pino and makes a quick escape on the motorcycle they just rode in on. But Sibir activates a trap. A heavy metal bar is about to come crashing down on Rebecca and Shicky, but Shicky saves the day by pushing Rebecca out of harm's way. Unfortunately, the metal bar falls on him instead. Sibir jumps into another robot suit and starts chasing Weiss and Pino. He leaves his main henchmen, the Foot brothers, to deal with Rebecca. Rebecca is really worried that Shicky might be gone for good, so she starts hitting the metal bar, hoping Shicky will pop out like in the movies. The Foot brothers shuffle their stuff and Rebecca gets why they're named that way. Meanwhile, Shicky wakes up surrounded by broken robots. He spots one that reminds him of Michael and feels sad. But the robot lights up and says he's not Michael, he's Johnny. Johnny explains that there are lots of robots like him and Michael was just one of many. Johnny tells Shiki that Sibir treats robots terribly, just tossing them aside when he's done with them. Shiki wants to help fix Johnny, but then he remembers Castellan saying that all his robot repairs were just pretend. Feeling helpless, Shiki can only watch as Johnny stops working completely. While all this is going on, Sibir hasn't given up chasing Weiss. He shoots a rocket that messes up their ride, making Weiss, Pino, and Happy crash. Back at the hideout, while the Foot brothers are picking on Rebecca, Shiki suddenly pops out from under the rubble. With just one move, he takes down both brothers and rushes out to find Pino. Just as Sibir is about to harm Weiss and Pino, Shiki jumps in to rescue them with a super strong move. He kicks so hard it's like hitting a can. Sibir gets mad and shows off his tough robot arm that Weiss actually made, and it's really strong. Shiki goes for Sibir but gets punched hard in the face. However, Shiki won't give up. He hits back even harder, his attack zapping through Sibir like lightning. Sibir tries to grab and choke Shiki, but Pino uses her special power to shut down the robot. Weiss comes through and takes Sibir down with a chunk of metal. Pino's grateful to Shiki for the save, but for Shiki, helping out is just what he does for friends. Once everything calms down, Pino lets slip that Sibir was using her to break into army places and snatch different kinds of robots. The cops know about Sibir's bad stuff now and they're on their way. The big question is who's really in charge of Pino. They've got to track down Professor Weiss to figure that out. But they've got to split from their quick so they don't get nabbed for not having their ID cards. Weiss thinks about sticking around, but when he hears the police are after him too because he used to hang with Sibir, he bolts. The gang dashes to their spaceship, planning to zip over to Blue Garden to ask the Space Guild for help to get back to the future. But they notice the cops are chasing their ship as well. They make it up near the edge of the planet, but some weird force keeps pushing their ship back and they can't break free. At that moment, Weiss comes out from his hiding spot and offers to lend a hand if the team gives him the ship. Rebecca isn't too keen on the idea, but Shiki reminds her that they were planning to upgrade their ship anyway. Weiss spills the beans that he can use ether gear too, just like Shiki. His power is called the Machine Maker, which lets him reprogram any device or machine. That's why he was able to fix up Happy in the future. While Weiss has the Machine Maker, Shiki can control gravity with his power. Weiss uses his skills to change the ship's settings on the fly, helping them break free from the energy field. They make it out of the planet's atmosphere. And then Rebecca gets a call from Professor Weiss. It's a total surprise to everyone, and they're all left scratching their heads. The professor fills them in that the planet's off limits now. If you go there, you end up stuck 50 years in the past. That's because a space monster called the chronophage munched on the planet's time, 50 years of it. So, Norma's living half a century ago. And there's no undo button for this. The professor had managed to get out before the chronophage hit. When he spots Pino, he drops another bombshell. The Demon King, who's actually Shiki's granddad, is Pino's real boss. Professor Weiss also catches a glimpse of his younger self but tells Rebecca not to stress about any time travel trouble. Alright, here's the lowdown. The professor's younger wife isn't a blast from the past, so the timeline's all good. It's just that the planet got its time yeeted, making this younger Weiss a dude from a different time slice. That chronophage is messing with space, making two histories run at the same time. And just like that, their call gets cut. They're suddenly chilling in the shadow of Elsie's pirate ship. No matter how hard Weiss tries, their ship gets sucked into hers. Elsie shows up like a hologram and she welcomes them to her ship, the Skull Fairy. She spills the beans that she's planning to trade them on planet Gilst. It used to be all lively, but now it's overrun with the shady crowd doing no good stuff. Shiki jumps in and says that he will be the captain. Elsie's game and tells him where to find her. She says if Shiki can beat her, the ship's his. But as Shiki heads out, he bumps into a bunch of creepy crawlies that can change shape and have taken over. Shiki doesn't waste any time and powers through these bugs to reach the control room. Meanwhile, these creeps have grabbed his buddies, but Rebecca's quick and zaps them with Happy, who turns into a gun and they all break free. When Shiki gets to the control room, there's Elsie. Turns out, she's got a human skull face, and she drops the bomb that she's been on the lookout for someone with the Demon King's mojo. Elsie is really keen to beat the top guy, the Demon King. At the same time, the Space Police, the Interstellar Union Army, are quietly preparing a trap for her and her squad. They've noticed someone else on the ship with special ether gear abilities from the signals they're getting. Right in the middle of all this, Elsie and Shiki are going toe-to-toe. Elsie's poking fun at Shiki for wanting to meet Mother, mentioning that even the Demon King tried and failed. Shiki is shocked to hear his grandpa tried too. He gets so mad that he uses his super strong gravity power to knock Elsie out, promising to do what his grandpa couldn't. But just when you think it's over, Elsie turns into a pile of goo. Shiki and his pals are totally confused until a hologram of Elsie shows up. She explains that the Elsie Shiki just beat wasn't the real deal, but a sneaky bug that copies people. It seems these bugs took over the ship and used the crew's DNA to create fake versions. The actual Elsie is on a totally different ship, far away from all this chaos. Elsie has a surprise for the crew. She's going to give them the ship because they beat the creepy bug that took it over. She admits she wanted to test Shiki's strength before she handed the ship over. The ship used to belong to his grandpa, the big boss known as the Demon Lord Ziggy. He went on a big quest to find Mother but didn't make it. Instead, he found Shiki and decided to come back and take care of him. Elsie had promised Ziggy to give the ship to Shiki when he was ready to explore space. As the crew takes in the sight of Elsie's huge group of ships, Elsie suddenly notices they're in danger of being shot at by the army. Quick thinking, she puts up a shield to protect Shiki and his friends so they can get away. Elsie and her ship stay behind to keep the army busy. As they're leaving, Shiki tells Elsie she's now his buddy. They use a super fast way to travel and zip away before the army even realizes what's happening. Once they're safe, the team decides it's time to clean up all the mess from the bug spores scattered around the ship. Pino is curious about why Ziggy created her in the first place. While taking a dip in one of the ship's baths, Rebecca notices something special about the water. It seems to wake up the magical energy called ether inside her. It turns out Rebecca has her own unique kind of ether power. She chats with Shiki and Weiss about her discovery and learns that she'll have to practice a lot to get good at using her ether ability. Soon after, the team steps into the Demon King's room. When Shiki takes a seat on his granddad's throne, something amazing happens. His presence triggers the ship's guardian to appear. A door swings open, and out comes the guardian, who introduces herself as Witch. She's one of the 4 legendary figures known as the Demon King's 4 shining stars, and she's an android made by the Demon King. Now that Shiki's there, she's ready to take orders from him, which explains she's been out of action for quite some time, which is why the ship's been in rough shape. But with just one command from Shiki, Witch gets to work. She cleans up the ship from top to bottom, making it look brand new again. Not only does it clean up nicely, but the ship also changes into a mighty space warship, which shares with everyone that the ship's name is Eden's Zero, which lets Shiki know that to even think about reaching Mother's location, he must find and bring together all the other shining stars. There's a tricky spot called Dragonfall that separates the Sakura cosmos from the rest of space. It's packed with dragons, and just one of these creatures is strong enough to smash a bunch of battleships. So you can imagine what a whole bunch of them could do. She also tells Rebecca that if she wants to get better at controlling her ether power, she should keep using the special bath on the ship, which shares a bit of history too, saying that after they all did what they were supposed to do, she was the only one who stayed on the ship. The other shining stars went off in different directions to live their own lives. Shiki stumbles upon a huge door inside the ship that's locked up tight, which hints that there's a big secret behind it, but she can't spill the beans about what it is. After that little mystery, the group arrives at Blue Garden. Weiss is totally taken by all the new sights and decides to split from the gang to have his own adventures. The rest of the crew heads to the guild, and even though Rebecca had said she wouldn't be able to step off the ship, they know they can still reach her using her gadget. While they're at the guild, Labilia pops up and starts teasing Rebecca like she usually does. Shiki steps in, but Labilia just shrugs it off, saying she's just speaking the truth. She even admits she's starting to find Shiki, or Gravity Boy as she calls him, pretty interesting. She mentions she's off to a photo shoot and takes off. Right then, Clay comes by with news that the Guildmaster wants to meet Rebecca, which totally surprises her because she's never even met the Guildmaster before. Shiki wants to go with her, but Rebecca says it's not necessary. She gets up to go, with Happy tagging along to keep things from getting dull. Shiki and his little robot friend Pino decide to explore the city a bit. While they're out, this mysterious dude shows up and corners Labilia and her security team. He takes down the guards super easily, and it looks like Labilia might be in trouble. But just then, Shiki arrives. Pino checks out the stranger and finds out that he's more machine than man, with 60% of his body made of mechanical parts. He's also got this special ability to control the wind. Cut to a different scene on the planet Gilst, where this rich guy named Mr. Allega gets the news that a group of girl video creators he's been waiting for are on their way back to Blue Garden. Back with Shiki, he's now facing off against the wind-wielding man, and it turns out this guy is way stronger than Shiki thought. The man uses his wind powers and almost destroys a whole highway, which could have hurt a lot of people, but Shiki steps in to stop it. Just when things are heating up, the wind guy gets a call and has to bounce. He tosses a challenge to Shiki, telling him if he wants to settle the score, he'll have to find him on Gilst. Labilia is really grateful to Shiki for stepping in to save her, and after saying thanks, she takes off. Then Happy shows up, looking all beat up, and shares that they got ambushed right in the guildmaster's office. It turns out Rebecca and the guildmaster have been snatched away. Right at that moment, news breaks out that a bunch of beekeepers have been taken too. Shiki puts 2 and 2 together and figures out that the bad guys must be taking Rebecca and the others to Gilst. He quickly tells his friends to hurry over to their spaceship, Eden Zero, because there's no time to lose. The spaceship Eden Zero punches in new travel details, setting a course for the planet Gilst. Shiki is fuming and can't wait to get there to save Rebecca. Speaking of Rebecca, she comes to and finds herself surrounded by other well-known beekeepers. A group of tough guys called Rogout shows up and tells them they now belong to someone named Sister. Shiki had a run-in with one of these guys, Jin, who's part of this rough crew. The moment Rebecca hears Sister, her thoughts fly to the 4 shining stars, because one of them is named Sister too. Ganoff, one of the mercenaries, lets slip that they're all being shipped off to Gilst to be sold to a man named Alega. Once the mercenaries leave, Rebecca tries to lighten the mood by saying how cool it is to hang out with the other beekeepers. She's familiar with all of them because she's a fan of their work. But it turns out they don't know her at all. She's not a big deal like they are. Rebecca's got less than 200 followers, while each of them has a following of over 100,000. On board Eden Zero, there's some skepticism about Sister being the one behind the kidnappings. It's known that Sister has special abilities to heal and fix broken machines and androids. She's supposed to look after the ship while the other 2, Valerie and Hermit, serve as the ship's blade and its core, respectively. These 4 stars are like the life, shield, blade, and core of Eden Zero, which makes them think that Ziggy might have made Pino to be even better than them. As the crew is trying to figure out how to rescue Rebecca, Weiss comes in with a lady no one knows. She introduces herself as Hamura and tells them she's not there to cause trouble. Weiss bumped into her when he was out learning about Rebecca's situation. Hamura had overheard Shiki talking about Eden Zero and knew it was the Demon King's ship. She offered to lend a hand in saving Rebecca and the others if Shiki would agree to battle her. Weiss agreed to this proposal but said he'd only share the terms of their agreement after they've saved Rebecca. The crew isn't sure about bringing Hamura along, but then she convinces them by showing off her own ether gear skills. Rebecca and the other girls arrive at Gilst, where they are handed over to a man named Mr. Alega. Alega looks like a frog and he shares his wicked plan with the girls. He intends to turn them into his personal decoration. The girls don't understand at first, but then Alega shows them what he means by using a special device. He's able to turn a girl into stone, making it easy for him to use her as a seat or anything else he pleases. He already has a collection of girls he's turned into stone. In the room where the girls are kept, a strange foam starts to fill the space, causing their clothes to dissolve. Meanwhile, Shiki and his team reach Gilst. The planet, once full of life and energy from tree ether, is now just a gloomy and cold place. They come across a church that seems to be the headquarters for the Rogout group. When they go inside the church, they're greeted by Sister. The woman in charge of Rogout introduces herself, and although she doesn't look like the real Sister, her identification matches. Shiki tells her to release the people she's taken, but she won't. Instead, she calls a group of robotic soldiers to surround Shiki and his friends. Just then, Hamura shows off her special power, which turns out to be an impressive sword called the Soul Blade. The woman orders the robots to deal with Shiki's group while she goes to settle a payment issue with Alega for a job they completed. Hamura tells Shiki not to worry about the robots and to go after the woman. Shiki agrees but promises to have a match with Hamura after they save Rebecca. Shiki and Pino manage to catch a ride on the woman's ship as she's about to take off. It turns out Alega won't pay for the job because he got 29 girls, not the 30 he was promised. He also refuses to pay for the 29 he did receive. Sister gets to where everything is happening and tells Moscow, one of her hired fighters, to head to the church and help the robots fight against Shiki and his friends. She's thinking of turning Shiki and the others into robots once they're beaten. Meanwhile, Rebecca figures out that the foam, which dissolved their clothes, might help them escape. The foam can melt things like cotton and glass. There's a glass window up high in the room, so the girls stack up on each other's shoulders to help Rebecca reach it. She uses the foam to break the window and make a way out. She plans to get outside and find a way to free the other girls. One of the girls, who love to talk about food on her channel, keeps reminding Rebecca not to forget to bring back some food. She's always thinking about eating. Soon, Rebecca meets Alega, who tries to capture her with his long frog-like tongue. Just as he's about to hurt her, Shiki bursts in, really angry. He throws Alega to the ground without even glancing at Rebecca. Shiki is so mad that he keeps on attacking Alega until Pino has to use her special ability to shut down electronics to stop Shiki by deactivating his powers for a bit. When the EMP is set off, it not only stops Shiki's powers, but also messes with the building, unlocking the door to the room where the girls are trapped. They manage to get out and they show up in some pretty silly outfits, even bringing a cat costume for Rebecca to wear. Out of nowhere, Jin appears and Shiki tells Pino to make sure the girls get to safety. Meanwhile, inside the church, Himura has taken out all the robots. She senses a strange energy coming from the church's basement and decides to check it out. Weiss, holding a gun, confronts her. He's suspicious and thinks she's up to something more than just wanting to challenge the new Demon King. Himura tells him his gun won't work on her, but Weiss has a trick up his sleeve. He secretly set up a bunch of machine guns in the floor while Himura was busy fighting. Just then, Moscow barges in, but his timing couldn't be worse. The machine guns pop out from the floor and shoot a storm of bullets at him. Back on the spaceship Eden Zero, Happy finally opens his eyes after being fixed up. At that moment, Witch notices that a time-eating monster, a chronophage, is on its way to Gilst. They have only 1 hour before it hits. Witch knows they need to hurry the ship down to Gilst to get everyone off the planet quickly. If they're still there when the chronophage comes, they'll be wiped out as if they never existed. Meanwhile, Shiki and Jin are in the midst of a battle in Allega's tower. This time, Shiki is winning. He's really set on stopping anyone who threatens his friends. Just as things are heating up, Sister steps in and stops the fight. That's when they realize that Allega has slipped away. Shiki is shocked to see Sister acting like a bad guy, but he's ready to stand up to her if he has to. At the same time, Rebecca notices that Copa, one of the girls, isn't with them as they try to escape. She decides to go back to find her. Back at the church, Himura and Weiss put their argument to rest and decide to explore the basement after hearing a strange noise. Down there, they find the real Sister Ivry hooked up to some machines. Himura suggests Weiss should use his special ether gear powers to help free her. Shiki is still tangled up in a battle with the imposter sister and her crew. Even though her crew is hurt, the fake sister heals them with her powers. Elsewhere, Rebecca discovers Allega holding Copa captive and notices his creepy collection of girl statues. Allega insists that Rebecca must kneel and plead to save Copa. Rebecca bravely does so, and Allega gloats about turning her into his next plaything. Suddenly, Allega's helper arrives, warning about the chronophage's approach. Allega is upset about possibly losing his collection, but his helper suggests he can always create a new one. While the helper is distracting Allega, Rebecca quickly snatches Allega's weapon. Before he knows it, Allega is staring down the barrel of his own gun in Rebecca's hands. With a steady hand, Rebecca deals with Allega. Meanwhile, the true Sister Ivry appears on the scene where Shiki is fighting the fake sister. Sister Ivry is furious and wastes no time knocking down her impersonator. 10 years back, Sister Ivry arrived on this planet for a mission but ended up captured by a fake sister who tied her up in the basement. After being freed, she gives a respectful nod to the new Demon King and mentions she can sense Witch's thoughts because the four sisters share a special link. Ivry knows she has unfinished business from a decade ago. She uses her special abilities, sending out a wave of energy through the town, which magically turns all the girls who were statues back into living, breathing people. With their task done, Shiki and his friends get ready to leave. Shiki tells Jin they'll finish their fight some other time. Jin, feeling betrayed, destroys the fake sister's head because she was just using him. He had been tricked into thinking she would help his sister by cleaning up the whole planet. Now, with everyone rushing to escape the danger, Rebecca arrives with the girls Ivry saved. They all join the other beekeepers at a safe spot Pino has found for them to wait for their ride, Eden Zero. Sister Ivry is happy, as she's been missing Witch's voice for a long time. Once the beekeepers are safe, Shiki meets up with Rebecca and Pino. The planet begins to experience a weird gravitational effect, but Shiki skillfully navigates them out of there. He uses his gravity controlling gear to bring all his crew members onto their ship, Eden Zero. Reports start to come in about the planet's condition. It seems like the planet has lost 1,200 years of its life, and there are many casualties. The crew gathers for a meeting. Sister mentions that she recognizes Himura's sword the moment she sees it. That sword used to belong to Valkyrie, Himura's mentor, who has mysteriously disappeared. Valkyrie had passed the sword to Himura before she went missing. This is Himura's reason for teaming up with the Demon King. She's determined to find her master. Hearing Himura's story, Shiki suggests that she should join them as a friend. It looks like, at this rate, Shiki is on his way to making friends with all of humanity. The team also manages to get Weiss to agree to come along on their journey. Suddenly, Moscow appears and everyone gets a shock. Sister steps in to explain that Moscow used to work for her before the imposter sister reprogrammed him to work as a fighter for hire. Sister is pretty upset to see Moscow has been damaged with lots of holes and vows to get back at whoever did it. Weiss is terrified at this and hopes Sister never finds out he's the one who did it. There's also this new red button on Moscow's tummy that Sister has installed. She's told him to never press it, no matter what. This makes everyone nervous because they have no idea what the button does. And Sister isn't giving away any clues. In another location, the military has also gotten the news about what went down on Gilst. The officers can't quite agree on how to feel about it. Some are relieved that the notorious planet has vanished, but others are concerned. Amidst the chaos, it turns out a very dangerous man named Draken Joe, also known as the Dark Alchemist, escaped. His name alone is enough to scare even the toughest soldiers. Back on the spaceship Eden Zero, Rebecca is talking about her special ability, Ether Gear. She wishes it could give her flawless aim when she uses guns, especially since her pal Happy transforms into one. It seems like the perfect skill for her. Clarice then gives Rebecca a call and shares some exciting news. Rebecca's adventures have made her quite the star among other adventurers and her fellow beekeepers, making their video views shoot up. While they're traveling, the crew spots statues of 12 heroes near Iron Hill. Olga is one of the 12 heroes from long ago who made the Sakura Cosmos safe, and they've been honored with massive statues. Out of the blue, Pino notices a girl sitting on top of the Colossus. When they get a closer look, they realize it's Hermit, one of the shining stars. The team quickly gets Hermit back on board their ship, but they notice she's completely still and not responding, even though she doesn't seem to be hurt on the outside. When they check her systems, they find errors which are strange and shouldn't be happening. Sister, who has healing abilities, says she can't fix Hermit, and Weiss can't use his special powers to fix her either. They realize the problem is with Hermit's heart, but not her physical one. Hermit is stuck in a kind of deep sleep on a planet called Digitalis. They learn that Digitalis isn't just any planet. It's both a virtual place and a real one, created from a server of an old online game named Rogue Fantasia. The characters in the game somehow managed to change the game's code and kept living there even after the players left. To help Hermit, the crew decides they need to enter this digital world too. Shiki, Himura, Rebecca, Weiss, Pino, and Happy all prepare to dive into the digital realm of Digitalis, where they can use their special abilities just like in the real world. But there's a catch. If something bad happens to them in the game, their real bodies will feel it too. If they don't log out safely before their game characters die, they risk dying in real life as well. When the team enters the game, they each have to make a digital version of themselves, called an avatar. Happy and Rebecca make avatars that look like themselves. Himura ends up in a man's avatar, while Weiss finds himself in a woman's. Pino appears as a little girl. Shiki first shows up looking like a tough action hero, but Rebecca convinces him to change his avatar to look more like his normal self. However, Weiss and Pino find out they can't use their special skills. If they try, they might accidentally change the game's code and get kicked out. So, for this trip, they can't really do much. They walk to the closest town and meet an old man who's part of the game, known as an NPC. Talking to him, they realize it might be tricky to tell the difference between the game's characters and real people playing the game. They decide to split up to learn more from the town. When they come back together, they learn that everything they need to find is to the north. Shiki suggests that they all get some rest and start their journey north the next day, hoping to find Hermit. The next morning, the team sets out to look for Hermit. On their way, they bump into a monster who's supposed to collect a fee to pass. Shiki is eager to fight, but the monster isn't interested in battling them. The monster explains that he was kicked out of Town Crystal, where he's usually a tough character to beat. He tells them about Jamilov, a bad guy who's been attacking everyone, both the game's characters and real-life players, without being stopped by the game's rules. The monster even helps the team by mentioning that Hermit is near the town's edge. When the team reaches Krista, they find Jamilov bragging about his wrongdoings. Jamilov lets slip that he's one of the high-ranking officers working for a notorious guy named Draken Joe. Shiki is really angry with Jamilov and attacks him with a lot of force, but Jamilov uses his special weapon, a scythe, to easily stop Shiki's attack. Then the scythe changes into a huge creature that fights against the whole team. Shiki and his friends can't seem to beat it. Luckily for them, Jamilov has to go because he has a meeting with Draken Joe, so he stops the fight and leaves. Rebecca is worried and hopes they can find Hermit and take her to safety before Jamilov comes back. The people in the town think the team has chased Jamilov away and start thanking them. But Shiki is honest and says Jamilov left because he had other things to do. Not long after, the team spots Hermit sitting by herself, lost in thought. Himura, on the other hand, tells the team she wants to look around the town more and won't join them. What the team doesn't know is that Himura has her own secret meeting with a man named Jesse, and they have their own plan. Himura tells Jesse that Shiki trusts her, so their secret plan is going well. Shiki pleads with Hermit to come with them to their spaceship, Eden Zero, but she says no. She tells them she doesn't trust humans anymore and actually dislikes them now. She knows Shiki as the kid that Ziggy, his guardian, took in. While Shiki and his friends are back in their room, trying to think of ways to persuade Hermit to join them, they're interrupted by the town's warning bells. Rushing outside, they find a bunch of monsters approaching the town. The monsters stop just outside and their leader tell everyone that they're following orders from Jamila. They plan to get rid of all the game characters and real-life players in the town. And after that, Jamilov wants to get rid of them too. He thinks this will give him a lot of experience points. It's even more shocking that the monsters are okay with this plan. As the monsters begin their attack, Shiki jumps into action to protect Hermit, realizing that some monsters are heading towards her. Hamura has split from the group again. Shiki quickly gets in touch with Jesse, who tells him that Jamilov is in the West Forest. Just as the monsters are about to reach Hermit, Shiki arrives in time to rescue her. He tries to convince her that not all humans are bad. Meanwhile, in the town, Rebecca and Happy are fighting off the monsters by themselves because Weiss and Pino can't use their powers. Suddenly, the troll they met before comes to help. He promises to defend the town because it's his duty. After a while, Shiki comes back to the town, and at the same time, Jamilov shows up. He commands his archers to shoot, and they let loose a storm of arrows. But the troll acts as a living shield to keep everyone safe. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Hamura shows up and shoots an arrow at a child without any hesitation. But Shiki, being the hero that he is, jumps in front of the child and takes the arrow instead. Everyone is shocked to see Hamura working with Jamilov. Hamura explains that she's willing to do anything to meet Drac and Joe. Jamilov then commands his archers to shoot at the people once again, and this time there's no one there to protect them. But, out of the blue, another version of Hamura appears, this time in a female body. She swiftly uses her sword to slice through all the thousands of arrows heading towards the people. It's a total surprise for everyone, and they're left wondering what just happened with the sudden appearance of the female Hamura. Hamura shares that when they entered the digital world, she suddenly found herself locked in a cell. She broke out and discovered that someone had been committing crimes using her name. After some investigating, she figured out that the Hamura with a male body was behind it all. With her story, the team realizes that the real Hamura is the one in the female body, and the other one is a fake. Jamilov loses his patience with all the confusion and chaos unfolding and decides to take action. He starts attacking everyone, shooting lasers from his scythe. Weiss is left curious, pondering over the other abilities that the scythe might possess. The fake Hamura manages to sneak away while the real Hamura chases after her. Meanwhile, Shiki is left to fight against Jamilov. However, Hermit informs the team that Jamilov is using cheats, so the only way to counter him is by using cheats of their own. As Hamura continues her pursuit of the imposter, she demands that the imposter reveals her true identity. The imposter then transforms into another body and introduces herself as Amira. She explains that she belongs to the Galactic Intelligence Agency and was actually a spy trying to get close to Drac and Joe. Unfortunately, her plan has been ruined, and now she needs to come up with a new one. Amira believes that she must eliminate Hamura because Hamura now knows her true identity. She pulls out her gun and fires at Hamura, but guns have no effect on Hamura. Amira then transforms her gun into a sniper rifle and tries to take out Hamura with it. However, Hamura manages to redirect the bullet towards Amira. Luckily, Amira logs out just in time to avoid getting killed. So, Shiki is still having a tough time fighting against Jamilov in the town. Hermit comes up with a plan to help by using Weiss's account as a bridge for her cheats. This means that Weiss's account would be the one to get banned instead of Hermit's. The reason Jamilov hasn't been banned yet is because he has been using other people's accounts as a bridge whenever he cheats, instead of using his main account. Hermit starts reprogramming the game data to boost Shiki's stats and remove Jamilov's invincibility. Jamilov realizes what's happening, and a programming battle breaks out between him and Hermit. Eventually, Jamilov gets tired of the battle and decides to use a programming code called the Final Code to wipe out the entire town. Once the code is activated, everything starts to disappear, and Hermit explains that the only way to stop it is by defeating Jamilov. Shiki gets angry and fights hard, using powerful attacks in combination to wear down Jamilov's invincibility until he is finally defeated and his data is wiped from the game. With Jamilov gone, Hermit is able to write a code that restores the town and its people back to normal. However, Weiss's account gets banned right after the whole event. Once everything settles down, Hermit and the crew returns to Eden Zero. Shiki and his friends step out of their gaming pods in the dive room, soaked in sweat from the intense experience. Pino is feeling a bit blue because she's returned to her robot form. In their usual hangout spot, the team is scratching their heads over what to do next since Hermit has shut herself in the dress factory, which can't seem to figure out why Hermit is no longer happy. Just as Shiki decides to go talk to Hermit, a loud alarm goes off and the ship lurches, throwing everyone off balance. On the display, a man pops up introducing himself as Spider, though they know him as Jamilov. Rebecca, looking really worried, tells them that he's a bad guy from a group of criminals and is super good at hacking. Spider boasts about his hacking skills and mocks them by saying it was a piece of cake to get into their ship's controls. Then, he makes the ship tilt onto its side. While the ship starts to fall apart from the inside, he keeps making fun of them. The story takes us back 15 years when Hermit's life changed. Ziggy had told the Star robots that their job was done and they could go their own way. Hermit ended up on planet Newton, and there she met Dr. Muller, a scientist. Dr. Muller shared his big idea to create an ether accelerator, a special machine that would help the abandoned robots on planet Hook. Planet Hook is where robots that humans no longer want end up living with nothing to do. Dr. Muller believed that humans and robots need each other, and that's why he wanted to build the accelerator to give the robots a new purpose. He thought Hermit was the perfect one to make this dream come true. Hermit threw herself into the work, trying to figure out the perfect formula for the accelerator. The kindness and friendship from the other scientists made her even more dedicated. Dr. Muller and his team really cared for Hermit, and that made her feel truly happy. Many months later, after lots of hard work, the big project was finally ready. Dr. Muller told all the robots to go to Planet Hook, but he kept Hermit with him. He said they needed the robots there to turn on a special machine once the accelerator was finished. When the big day came, Dr. Muller's team started up the accelerator, aiming it right at Planet Hook, but something went wrong. The robots on the planet started sending out emergency messages saying there was too much ether energy and it was going to destroy them. Dr. Muller didn't stop the machine, though. Hermit watched in horror as the planet was ruined. She was heartbroken, but then she found out that Dr. Muller wanted this to happen. He thought humans were better than robots and wanted to get rid of them. When Dr. Muller told his team to get rid of Hermit too, one scientist had a different idea. They decided to keep her and use her for experiments. Dr. Muller admitted he didn't send Hermit to the planet on purpose, just in case their plan didn't work out. For Hermit was then taken by the scientists, who treated her badly, using her for tests and hurting her. Many years later, the army came to the lab and arrested Dr. Muller and his friends for doing research without permission. Hermit was finally set free and decided to go to a place called Iron Hill. She wanted to find somewhere where she could be alone and not have to be around humans. She found a place called Digitalis, which seemed like the perfect spot for her. She stayed there until the crew found her again in the present time. One of the crew members, Rebecca, went to the room where Hermit was hiding and begged her to change her mind about humans. Another crew member named Shiki reminded Hermit that not all humans are bad, and she knew this too. Shiki told Hermit not to trust humans, but to trust herself. He said that she was the only one who could save them in the ship. Shiki even said that he was willing to sacrifice himself along with Hermit. When Hermit heard this, she realized that all she wanted was friends. The whole crew showed her kindness and warmth. Hermit's beautiful smile returned, and she activated the ship's defenses. She locked Jamilov out of the system and found his location. The crew scared Jamilov off by pretending to launch a missile at him, but they really just pressed a button that made fireworks go off. Hermit laughed with the crew, and which reminded Weiss about what she had said before about Hermit having the most beautiful smile. The damage report showed that it would take a few days for the ship to fix itself. The ship can usually repair damage quickly, but Jamilov caused a lot of problems, which is why the repairs will take longer this time. Over the next few days, the crew has a good time together and enjoys lots of tasty food made by Rebecca. Pino, the android, shares her dream of becoming human. Weiss understands that it's nearly impossible for an android to turn into a human, but he still respects Pino's dream. He thinks that the only way Pino's dream could come true is if the stories about the mother are right, that she can make any wish come true. If that's the case, Pino might get her wish after all. On the distant Brown Sea planet, Amira gets in touch with Jesse. They discuss what to do next after their last plan didn't work out. It turns out Jesse has been secretly giving Amira details about the spaceship Eden's Zero. It's also revealed that Jesse is actually part of Elsie's team and is secretly working against her. Meanwhile, on the spaceship Burial Gore, which belongs to Draken Joe, Jamilov is trying to see Draken in his private room. Draken's helper, Maria, tries to stop him because Draken is in the middle of an important meeting, but Jamilov insists on seeing him. When Jamilov enters, he finds Draken, along with his top guys Seth and Diego, in the middle of punishing a man who didn't pay his debts. It becomes clear that Draken doesn't recognize Jamilov at all, even though Jamilov has been pretending to be one of his generals. Draken decides to listen to Jamilov's story but gets really angry when he finds out that Shiki and his friends beat Jamilov, and that Jamilov dared to come to him and even drop Draken's name to the Eden's Zero crew. Draken tells Seth to get rid of Jamilov. Seth is so quick on the draw that Jamilov doesn't even notice he's been shot until it's too late. Jamilov falls dead right there. However, Draken is still interested in Eden's Zero, as it's the first he's heard of it and he thinks the ship could make him money. Draken is always looking for ways to make a profit, so he's keen on finding out more about this ship. Back on Eden Zero, Sister tells the crew that she thinks the Adventurers Guildmaster Noah might be involved in bad thing. She wonders how Noah managed to escape when Rebecca was captured. Sister also mentions that she has done jobs for Noah in the past. Shiki really wants to investigate Noah and punish him, but he gets a little upset when he realizes that the crew's focus is on finding Valkyrie first. However, Shiki's mood improves when he hears that they are going to visit a famous fortune teller who knows everything about the past, present, and future. This fortune teller is staying on planet Mildian, where time is said to have stopped. It turns out that Sister's suspicion about Noah might be true. we see Noah receiving a call from Joe, who wants to learn more about Eden Zero. Next up, the Eden Zero team decides to create new outfits for themselves. Weiss agreed to help Hamura only if she wore a bunny costume, and she keeps her word by dressing up. The team also convinces Witch to wear a witch costume because it matches her name. Sister joins in the fun by dressing as a maid. Moscow wants to change his look too, but Sister says no. Soon after, they reach planet Maldian. They leave Eden Zero in their old ship to touch down on the planet. Once they land, they see a building right in front of them. Before they go inside, there's a sign on the door that tells everyone to take off their shoes. They all follow the rule and walk in barefoot. Inside, it's like they've stepped into a place that looks like outer space. A woman named Xiaomai greets them. She says she's a time oracle, not just a fortune teller, and she already knows why they're there. She'll give them the information they're looking for, but first, they have to do something for her. They agree to her terms, and suddenly, they find themselves in a fighting arena. Xiaomai tells the group that they need to fight and put on a show for the people of the planet before she'll share any secrets with them. Shiki is the only one who's really happy about fighting, he just loves it. Xiaomai lets them know she won't use her powers to see who wins the fights because she wants to enjoy the show too. Their first challenge is against a super strong warrior with steel skin from Zorg. Shiki is up for the fight against this ironclad guy. The rest of the team is a bit nervous when they see the warrior, but Shiki is eager to start. Xiaomai kicks off the fight and, to everyone's surprise, Shiki knocks out the metal warrior with a single gravity-powered move. Even Xiaomai didn't see that coming. Xiaomai tells the crew that the tournament has 4 rounds and each of them has to take part. She's the one who decides who fights who, and nobody else can interfere. Oh, and killing is not allowed, just to make things clear. Round 2 starts and Xiaomai chooses Rebecca to fight against the SBA Cosmic Fleet champion named Flanker Yakai. A really skinny guy comes out from the shadows, and everyone thinks it's an easy win for Rebecca. She's even allowed to use her partner Happy as a weapon since they work together. But surprise, Flanker turns out to be stronger than they expected. Still, Rebecca manages to outsmart him and win the fight. Surprisingly, it turns out Flanker is also a beekeeper who fights in the arena as a side gig. Moving on, it's Weiss's turn, and he's up against a super quick opponent named Highway Ina. Ina is speedy, but Weiss isn't phased. He simply uses Pinot's EMP, and just like that, Ina is defeated. Now, it's Hamura's time to shine, but Xiaomai warns that her opponent will be the most challenging yet. Suddenly, Valkyrie steps onto the stage, causing a stir among the crew. Xiaomai quickly clears up the confusion, saying they're not looking at the real Valkyrie but a copy of her. This is a big deal because the replica knows everything Hamura can do. The battle starts, and the fake Valkyrie seems to be winning, but Shiki has faith in Hamura. We're then taken back in time for a moment, seeing how Valkyrie saved a young Hamura when her village was under attack. After the rescue, Valkyrie became Hamura's mentor, as Hamura had no one else. Right now, Hamura is really determined to find her mentor, and it gives her the strength she needs. She cleverly makes it look like she's made a mistake, leaving herself open to attack. The fake Valkyrie falls for it but catches on too late, and that's when Hamura hits back hard. After winning the fight, it turns out that the fake Valkyrie is actually just another robot. Xiaomai tells everyone that it's a training bot named TB7000. She admits she fibbed about it being a real copy of Valkyrie because nobody can truly copy the shining stars. Xiaomai had just loaded the bot with what she knew about Hamura and Valkyrie to make the fight tougher. After congratulating them on their win, Xiaomai sends them back to where they started from and lets slip that they'll find Valkyrie on a planet called Sun Jewel before they take off. Xiaomai shares with the team that Mother is definitely real, not just a story. She even says that Mother is the one who gave her the ability to control time. However, the team has to figure out Mother's location by themselves. Xiaomai also warns them that Mother has a lot of power, so they need to be extra careful to keep her away from bad people who might want to use that power for their own purposes. After leaving Maldian, the Eden Zero spaceship sets a new course for planet Sun Jewel. Suddenly, they receive news that there's a big mess of debris in front of them, which means they'll have to take a longer route and it will take them 3 extra days to reach Sun Jewel. Going through the debris could be really dangerous, so they have to go around it. Just then, they spot something interesting outside the window, thousands of fish swimming by. Hollyhock Burr flies into the school of fish and sees a man holding a ship's steering wheel among the fish. The man asks for their help, and the crew quickly agrees. The man introduces himself as Captain Connor. His ship got into an accident that he can't explain, but he held onto the steering wheel. Before he knew it, he ended up in a part of space that he didn't recognize. It turns out he's from AI's cosmos. The crew gives Captain Connor some food, and right away, he starts asking if he can be the captain of Eden Zero. But everyone says no together. Even so, Connor begins to stroll around the ship as if he's the boss, which makes a lot of the crew members wary of him. They are still trying to figure out what to do about him when suddenly, an alarm from the control room sounds. They think Connor might be trying to steer the ship without asking. They hurry to the control room and find that Connor has somehow managed to navigate them past the debris field and right to planet Sun Jewel. They're shocked and want to know how he did it, but he won't tell them. He teases them, saying if they make him captain, he'll reveal the amazing things the ship can do. As he walks out of the control room, they notice a tattoo that says Eden's One around his wrist. Shortly after arriving on the fancy and prosperous planet, the crew decides to check out a casino in hopes of finding Valkyrie. But then, a group of armed robbers bursts into the building and orders everyone to lie down. Instead of obeying, Shiki does the opposite and takes down the thieves one by one. Hamura joins in, and together they have the robbers begging for mercy. Suddenly, a bright light appears above the thieves, and they disappear without a trace. The floor is left with a burnt red mark, and the crew realizes that the thieves must have met a grim fate. Madame Kiranai, the ruler of the planet, has a zero-tolerance policy for violence, and anyone who breaks the rules faces severe punishment. In Kiranai's chambers, Drac and Joe can be seen having a meeting with her. It seems that Joe hasn't forgotten his mission to find and capture Eden Zero, and he probably needs Kiranai's assistance. Meanwhile, back at the casino, two of Kiranai's representatives, known as the Punish Measures, approach Shiki and Hamura. The Punishers explain that the duo will be punished according to the law, which strongly disapproves of violence. The same bright light from earlier appears above Hamura and Shiki, and just like the thieves, they vanish into thin air. Rebecca is really scared, but the Punishers tell her there's no need to worry. Shiki and Hamura are still alive. They've just been sent to a work area to collect minerals for Madame Kiranai. They'll be set free after they gather 100,000 pieces of ore. When they get to the mining place, Shiki passes out because he's terrified of the swarm of bugs coming towards him. For Hamura, she notices the bugs are actually carrying rocks. When Hamura defeats one of the bugs, the number of ores she needs to collect goes down by 1. This is because the bugs are the ones bringing the rocks that contain the ores. And when they defeat a bug, the ore it was carrying goes straight to Madame Kiranai. While Hamura is dealing with the bugs, some other miners show up and get rid of the bugs. These miners then take Hamura and Shiki to where they all live. They explain that they can find ores in other big creatures like kaiju as well. Bugs might only have 1 ore stone, but these big creatures could give thousands. When Shiki hears about the big creatures, he wakes up and gets excited about the idea of fighting a huge monster. Not long after, the district boss named Garat shows up and starts being mean to one of the miners. Shiki tries to step in, but the warden uses his whip to hit both Shiki and Hamura in the legs. The whip has this paralyzing effect, and it immediately makes them lose their strength. The warden then does whatever he wants to them, and he decides to take Hamura with him for his own amusement. Shiki can only watch helplessly as the warden takes Hamura away. Now, in Madame Kiranai's chambers, she's hosting an auction to find the most handsome person to be her assistant. Cedric is one of the candidates, and he's really good looking, but Madame Kiranai isn't impressed. She uses her powers to burn Cedric's face. After that, she asks her right-hand man, Ward, if he knows anything about a ship called Eden Zero. Ward says he hasn't heard of that ship before, which surprises Madame Kiranai because Ward usually knows a lot about space and stuff. She reveals that Drake and Joe have brought her a job offer. It's said that the ship has something called an ether drive. Ward is shocked when he hears this because even if they mine all the ores on the planet, it won't be nearly as powerful as the one on Eden Zero. But here's the thing, Madame Kiranai actually plans to betray Drake and Joe and keep everything for herself. Next, Rebecca figures out that there's something on the planet that's messing up their communication with the ship, Eden Zero. She starts looking for information on how to get to the labor district. By chance, she bumps into Labilia, who says she'll tell Rebecca where the district is if she does her a favor. Since Rebecca's getting more famous, Labilia wants to make a video together. The catch is, Rebecca has to wear a costume from a cartoon. Rebecca agrees and dresses up. Suddenly, a well-known beekeeper comes by and likes Rebecca's costume because he's into animals. Labilia gives Rebecca a script for their video. They start filming, and out of the blue, a whole bunch of soup dumps on Rebecca. Labilia can't stop laughing and tells Rebecca it was all a prank, not a real video collaboration. Rebecca feels really down, but she quietly asks for the labor district's location anyway. Labilia teases her, saying she doesn't actually know where it is and walks away. Just when Rebecca thinks she's out of luck, Nino quietly comes over and gives her a piece of paper. The note that Nino gave Rebecca had the location of the labor district and he's willing to share it with her. Nino tells Rebecca to meet him at a specific place but warns her not to say anything because someone named Kiranai is listening to all the conversations in that building. In the labor district, there's a guy named Garat who has tied Hamura to the ceiling and he's getting ready to do something bad to her. It turns out while being tied up they can't use ether gear because it flows through body, and they can't access it with their hands. However, just as Garat is about to have his fun, Shiki bursts into the building. Garat tries to fight back, but Shiki is way quicker. He knocks Garrot around and finally flings him up to the ceiling. When Shiki frees Hamura, she shares with him a weird weakness of ether gear. While they're talking about Valkyrie, Garrot overhears them. Surprisingly, Garrot knows who Valkyrie is and spills the beans. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Nino meet up where they plan to. Turns out, Nino is on Kurenai's team, but he chooses to help Rebecca anyway because she likes anime. Nino also figures out Rebecca's goal to find her spaceship, Eden Zero. They walk through a tunnel and at the end, there's this door with tight security. Nino punches in the secret code and voila, the door swings open to the labor district. Nino tells Rebecca to take care and heads off. As soon as Rebecca steps into the district, a robot bird signals her to tag along. Feeling excited, Rebecca and her companion Pino hurry after the bird to find out where it's headed. The bird brings them to a man who's sitting quietly, almost like he's in deep thought. Suddenly, the man shows off his special power by snatching Rebecca's B-cube right out of thin air. His special ability, called Steel Hand, lets him grab anything within 10 meters. He then introduces himself as Paul and mentions he's learned from Valkyrie too. He knows Rebecca is on the lookout for Valkyrie, but he's got some unfortunate news. Paul pulls out a recorder that has all the details about Valkyrie's visit to this world and the sad reason she won't be returning. Inside the storage area, Hamura pleads with Garrot to let her know her mentor's whereabouts, but he won't budge. He boasts about his control over the Oculus Kurenai system, which is how they ended up in this place. He tells them that as long as they wear the worker's collar, he's in charge. With a snap of his fingers, a bright light envelops them, and he sends them off to what he thinks will be their doom. Right after that, one of Kurenai's crew shows up to tell Garrot that Kurenai wants a meeting. Shiki and Hamura appear in a different part of the mining tunnels and come face to face with a huge creature covered in thousands of rocks. They try to fight it, but it's incredibly tough. Just when things are looking grim, Rebecca, Happy, and Pino show up with Paul. Paul tells them that no hunter or worker has ever managed to beat this creature. Pino does a quick scan and discovers that the creature's weak point is on its back. Hamura helps Rebecca get high up in the air so she can shoot at the monster's weak spot. But Rebecca doesn't go high enough, so Shiki uses his special gravity ability to boost her even higher. Rebecca hits the target, and then Hamura finishes the beast off. They think they're done with their work, but then the number they have to work off jumps back up to 100,000. Paul explains that people working in the district can't leave cause of Kurenai. Paul then uses his special skill to take off the collars from Shiki and Hamura. He could have left himself a long time ago, but he stayed because he was waiting for Hamura, knowing she would show up. He gives her a device that tells the real story about Valkyrie. Meanwhile, somewhere else, Kurenai is planning to get rid of the work district because she won't need the rocks anymore if she gets her hands on Eden Zero. Kurenai has made Cedric her loyal follower. The group, including Hamura, sees the real story of why Valkyrie went away, and it makes Hamura cry. It is revealed that a memory from 10 years ago on the planet Edo, where Valkyrie starts to look after Hamura. Hamura shares that her mom left the planet before a big conflict broke out, and she might still be out there somewhere. Hamura keeps learning from Valkyrie because she wants to be strong like her. 5 years on, Hamura has a problem with a rich kid who acts like he owns everything, and she ends up giving him a lesson. The rich kid's dad hears about it, but he doesn't punish Hamura. He tells her to say sorry to his son, but Hamura won't do it. She says the rich kid is the one who should say sorry because he was rude about her teacher. The rich man gives up on trying to solve the problem when he sees it's going nowhere. After talking with Valkyrie, he tells her that maybe Valkyrie can't take the place of Hamura's mom, and that Hamura really needs her mom. Hearing this, Valkyrie decides to find Hamura's mother. But before she disappears, she leaves a note. Unfortunately, a sneaky cat takes off with the note without Valkyrie knowing. Valkyrie goes to Xiaomai to tell her where Hamura's mom is. Surprisingly, Xiaomai reveals that Hamura's mom is Kurenai. Valkyrie is determined to bring Hamura and her mom together, so she heads straight to planet Sun Jewel. There, she finds Kurenai working in the mines. Kurenai got into some trouble with gambling and ended up in debt. To help her, Valkyrie offers to take her place and has Paul remove Kurenai's collar and put it on herself. Valkyrie is ready to pay off Kurenai's debt so she can be with her daughter. But 2 years later, Valkyrie finds out that Kurenai didn't go to Hamura like they planned. Instead, she married the ruler of the planet. And not only that, she even killed the Baron and now she's in charge of the whole planet. Valkyrie is all set to confront Kurenai about her choices when suddenly a bunch of stone beasts are let loose in the district by Kurenai. She knows that the more beasts they defeat, the more ores and money she can make. But to protect the people, Valkyrie decides to take on the beasts all by herself. She uses all her strength and power to defeat them. After the battle, Valkyrie has used up all her power and she finally shuts down, striking a cool knee stance. She feels regretful that she never had the chance to tell Hamura how much she loves her. Now, in the present day, Hamura discovers Valkyrie's body in the exact same spot and position where she died. Paul and the other workers explain that Valkyrie has become a symbol of hope for them, which is why they haven't moved her body. They also hope that Hamura will find her someday. Hamura is heartbroken and she falls to her knees, tears streaming from her eyes. Hino reveals that Valkyrie is permanently gone because once an android's core is depleted, there's nothing that can be done. The workers tell Rebecca that they've been waiting for a long time to rebel against Kurenai. They believe that Hamura's arrival is the signal they've been waiting for, and they're ready to fight. Hamura stays right by Valkyrie's side, struggling to come to terms with the fact that her mentor is gone. Later on, Shiki stops by to offer some comforting words to Hamura before he heads off towards Kurenai's tower. At the same time, Kurenai is getting the Oculus cannon ready. This cannon is super strong and can take out anything it's pointed at. Kurenai wants to use this cannon to wipe out the labor district. But just as she's doing this, Shiki storms into the building, furious, and tells her he's going to make her face Hamura. Valkyrie really wanted to bring Hamura and her mom back together, and Shiki is determined to make that happen. He's not going to give up, no matter what. Kurenai sends her Punishers to attack Shiki, but he easily takes them all out with one powerful move. Then, Kurenai's General Baku and Garat team up against Shiki, but they can't match his strength. Shiki uses his gravity attack to knock them down. Meanwhile, in the labor district, Rebecca tells Hamura about the upcoming battle. She encourages Hamura to express everything she's always wanted to say to her master, believing that her feelings will reach Valkyrie. Kurenai orders Ward to activate the Oculus Kurenai, but they discover that Draken Joe has already hacked into their system and taken control of the cannon. Draken Joe's massive ship has the Eden in sight, and his plan is to capture the ship through direct combat, with the Oculus no longer under her command. Kurenai instructs Baku and her other leaders to handle the uprising in the labor district. Nino, feeling somewhat uninterested, agrees to go along with the plan. Kurenai then suits up in her brand new, very strong knight armor. She steps into the suit and with a powerful blow, sends Shiki flying out of the building. The fight that's about to happen seems like it's going to be intense because this armor is not only strong but also has ether coating, which makes it even more formidable. Over in the labor district, Rebecca and the rebels are in the middle of a fight with the Punishers. Suddenly, Bacchus shows up and quickly defeats the rebels near him. He aims an attack at Rebecca, but just in time, Weiss jumps in and blocks the attack, saving her. Weiss has this cool new suit that he developed with Hermit's help. It's like an armor that enhances his ether gear abilities to their fullest potential. He wears it on his wrist, so he can easily activate it whenever he wants. Meanwhile, Shiki and Kurenai are still going at it in the city, fighting each other. Shiki is not only trying to defeat Kurenai's knight armor, but also making sure the civilians are safe. Weiss calls his suit Arsenal, and it also gives him the ability to move really fast. As Weiss battles against Baku, he keeps modifying his suit to make it even better. The suit warns Weiss that the ether, which powers it, will run out in 10 seconds. So, Weiss quickly creates a powerful cannon before the ether is depleted and uses it to defeat Baku. Once the ether runs out, the suit disappears from Weiss's body, leaving him without any armor. Paul suggests to Rebecca and Weiss that they can pick out new outfits at the armory, which could be useful during the ongoing battle between Shiki and Kurenai. In the midst of the fight, Shiki smashes the ground, causing them to tumble down into the labor district. This is part of his plan to damage the knight's armor. Shiki decides to charge up his body with ether gear but intentionally leaves his fist without the power. He does this because a punch powered by ether wouldn't do any harm to the armor since it's protected against ether. By using a normal punch, Shiki manages to hurt the armor, but it also means his own fist gets injured. After that, Rebecca and Weiss head over to the armory to grab some clothes. During this time, Weiss finds out that Valkyrie has passed away, and he starts to think about how this sad news will affect the Shining Stars. He also thinks about how Hamura must feel, knowing her teacher is gone. Rebecca comes out of her changing area, and when Weiss tries to leave his, he realizes he's stuck because the door has been locked from the outside. He can't open it right now because he's run out of ether. Rebecca spins around to spot Nino. He spills the beans about his scheme to lock up the armory to stop the rebels from grabbing weapons to take on Kurenai. Rebecca tries to talk him out of it, but Nino's not having any of it. He shows off his ether gear, which gives him mechanical arms with super strong punches. Rebecca is well aware that just one hit from those fists could be the end of her. Nino starts swinging at her, and she's ducking and weaving to avoid the blows. In the midst of all this dodging, a light bulb goes off in Rebecca's head about why Sayoma had them duke it out in the arena. It was all a setup, a training session for the real deal they're facing on this planet. Weiss is squaring off against a fast-moving opponent, much like his arena challenge. Rebecca's up against a B-cuber with knockout punches, and Hamura had to face a copy of Valkyrie, which Sayomai must have planned knowing Hamura wouldn't get to see her teacher again. It was a farewell fight. While Rebecca's piecing this together, a punch is zooming in on her. Suddenly, she feels a surge of ether rush to her legs. She zips back just in time, dodging the punch by a hair. That's when Rebecca's own ether gear kicks in. She charges at Nino like lightning and lands a heavy kick right to his noggin, sending him crashing down. Rebecca names her Ether Gear Leaper because it lets her hop and jump around quickly. Once Nino is out of the picture, the armory doors swing open and Weiss is free to join her. Xiaomai drops a clue about Rebecca's abilities, suggesting that Rebecca hasn't fully tapped into Leaper's true potential yet. It seems this power might be key to saving the universe someday. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, Garot launches an attack on Hamura, who is feeling down near her master's remains. Hamura finds herself stuck in place because of Garot's whip, and he starts taunting her and her master, even going as far as to cut off Valkyrie's head. This enrages Hamura, but she's trapped and can't move. In a flash, she remembers a special move from her master, which lets her summon several swords at once. She goes after Garot with these swords, but he's quick to defend himself, blocking every attack. He then ties up Hamura's hands, trying to keep her from using her ether gear. Garot thinks he's already won and keeps on mocking, but he soon realizes that Hamura had a trick up her sleeve. She had cleverly used one of the swords she made to knock Valkyrie's own sword loose. Caught off guard, Garot doesn't see Valkyrie's sword falling from above until it's too late, and it stabs him. When Rebecca and Weiss arrive, they see Garot stuck to the ground by the sword, and Hamura expresses her gratitude, acknowledging their support was crucial in her victory. Kurenai cranks up her knight armor to max, aiming to take out Shiki in a hurry. She launches a bunch of missiles that follow Shiki wherever he goes. Shiki figures out that these missiles won't give up chasing him, so he decides to draw them back toward the armor. Using the energy from the missiles and his own gravity abilities, Shiki manages to blow up both the missiles and the armor. He then pries open the armor and pulls Kurenai out. Elsewhere, Nino starts to change his mind and turns off the systems that run the Punishers. Shiki brings Kurenai over to where Hamura and the others are waiting. The rebels are ready to jump on her and take her down, but Paul steps in. He insists that they should let Hamura, who learned from Valkyrie and is also Kurenai's daughter, decide what to do with her. Kurenai pleads with Hamura to let her go, but it's clear to everyone she's just putting on an act. Hamura takes out an old doll that Kurenai gave her when she was little, but Kurenai shows no sign of recognizing it. Hamura respectfully thanks Kurenai for giving her life but says she no longer has any feelings of love, care, or anger towards her. Hamura makes it clear that she sees Valkyrie as her true mother, not Kurenai. After sharing her feelings, Hamura tells Kurenai she's free to go. Kurenai doesn't waste a second. She gets up and dashes into the forest. Once she's hidden among the trees, she starts laughing wildly, thinking she's tricked Hamura. But her laughter is cut short when Cedric and others who have suffered because of Kurenai show up out of the blue. Cedric strikes Kurenai with a bat right across her face. They declare to Kurenai that she's going to be their captive from now on. Before they leave the planet, Hamura places the doll near Valkyrie's resting place as a tribute to their special bond, like a child would honor a parent. Once back on the spaceship Eden Zero, the crew is heartbroken to learn that one of their own has passed away. Sister is determined to retrieve Valkyrie's body, believing she can revive her with advanced healing and by using stored memories to create a new body. However, Hamura gently explains that even if they did that, it wouldn't really be the Valkyrie they all loved. Her feelings and connection to Hamura wouldn't be the same. Hamura shows her readiness to step into her mentor's role. Sister, frustrated and upset that the others seem to accept Valkyrie's end, storms out of the room, which reassures everyone that she'll go talk to Sister. She quickly goes after Sister, who has just left the room. Elsewhere, it is revealed that the spaceship Draken Joe was chasing is actually a fake. Draken has figured it out and is now searching for the real Eden Zero again. He's pretty sure he'll catch them soon because he believes he knows their destination. The crew of the Stars was clever enough to realize someone was on their tail and set up a fake ship to trick Joe. Meanwhile, back on the real ship, Witch finds Sister in Valkyrie's favorite spot, where she used to gaze at the stars. Sister is about to speak when she notices Witch is already there, crying a lot. They end up embracing and crying together loudly, showing that even though they are androids, they are deeply saddened by the loss of their friend. Thanks for watching till this long, my fellow men of culture. Don't forget to tell us about your favorite waifu from this anime and subscribe to the channel for more content.